So anyways, I don't know if you've ever gone on the Wrestling Observer website. Mm-hmm. Do you ever go on there?
If Meltzer, like I'll check Meltzer's timeline every once in a while.
Right.
And if there's a story that's linked that I want to read about, I'll go on it. All
right. Well, I'll usually go to his website maybe twice a week just to catch up on shit that, right. Because he's always has really stuff that I don't even know where, you know what I'm saying? So
did he give you a free password?
I get a free Observer every week. Yeah.
You mean they send you one in the mail still?
You read the paper one, right? You don't read it online.
Yeah, I read it online, but they still send me a paper one.
Okay.
Do they really?
Yeah.
That's you. You're old school. You still like the paper.
Yeah, not that much anymore. It's too much, bro. It's just, he writes a lot.
Right.
So let me see. So anyway, so on his website, he does this where he'll put like a back issue, like a back observer, this week's.
Right, yeah. Like I'll see those he posts, but this week in like 19.
I love those.
I love those.
Right. Yeah. I love those because it's a time capsule. I mean, he basically captures everything that happened, and there's stuff that I forgot about or stuff that I didn't even know about, and I'm like, really? That happened? Or I didn't remember that, but it's there, So I was looking at one that he had from, I'm going to tell you the date, June 9th, 2003, okay? And he's talking about TNA, which you were booking at that time or helping book, right? Or no?
That was the Asylum shows.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So want me to read you a couple things here and see what you remember and give me some little thoughts on them?
Yes.
All right. So it says, see if you remember this. It says I don't remember this at all. You probably do. It says the backstage turmoil at the 528 show was huge. It's so weird because there are times I think because it's Vince Russo and because he and Jeff Jarrett have been longtime friends, they're working everybody, except that it's for the most part only the wrestlers that talk about it. The show was more of a Russo type show with tons of stuff and little good wrestling. The poll was
That's offensive, by the way. That's offensive.
All right. The poll
you saw the crew we had, right?
Yeah. AJ Daniels.
That's ridiculous to sit there saying.
Well, it doesn't matter. You could have a bad. Well, here's a poll. This is the fans, not him. It says the poll was 7 thumbs up, 31 down, and 8 in the middle. So are the fans wrong too? Maybe there was a bad show.
These are observer fans,
right?
So I don't know. I don't know. I can't remember.
They don't know about wrestling?
Well, you're asking me about.
Okay, I'm going to ask you some stuff.
Here's my question. You asked me about a date, and all you've told me so far is.
All right, I'm getting into the. This is page 1 of the story. Am I supposed to put the ending on the very first page? I'm getting into the story.
I will, but I want to predict something. Okay, for backstage turmoil, I would suggest it probably has a lot to do with Jeff and Raven. I'm not going to preamble that. All right, cool. Let's go.
Yes.
Okay,
that's exactly, and that was true because I read there was
100%. Yeah. That was my prediction.
I just don't. Here's the thing, bro. Since I wasn't, and you know me, dude. You know, I wasn't a backstage politic guy. I was never in the office going, Glenn, what are you guys going to do with me next? Or why are you doing this? Or why are you know what I'm saying?
No, you were always smoking pot with Truth and BG.
Yeah.
Wait, let me just interject something real quick. What date did you say the Observer was? June 9th?
June 9th, 2003.
What's interesting is the previous TNA show before that was main evented by Jeff Jarrett versus Glenn Gilberti. So I'm just saying.
Sure, yeah.
And I think in this show it's Glenn and Raven and Jarrett or something like that. But I'll get to it because I don't remember none of this. So I just want to see what you remember. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm reading this and I'm like, wow, how high was I? I don't remember none of this shit. So anyways, it says the best match. See if you remember any of this, okay? Mm-hmm. It says the best match was interesting because it was a squash match with D'Lo Brown and AJ Styles over Jason Cross and CM Punk, which only went 429. Mm-hmm. And I'd agree with it because they did a fast-paced match that the crowd got into the last minute. Ironically, the original plan was for a local jobber team. I don't even remember these guys. See if you do, called the Kingpins.
Maybe. Yeah, they were 2 fat guys.
Okay, who do a bowler tag team gimmick.
Right, yeah.
Okay, to be squashed. To be squashed here. but either Jarrett or Bob Ryder, I don't know what Ryder had to do with this, but it says this is, but either Jarrett and or Bob Ryder change a job or team, which saved things.
He booked the like enhancement guys, I think, Ryder.
Oh, he did.
The guys
here was the thing. You got to understand, when Punk came to TNA, Jeff and Vince didn't really know much about him at all. And I didn't really. I knew him from the Indies. I thought he was a pretty good indie worker, but he was like the main eventer of like indie shows in Pittsburgh,
Ring of Honor,
like and stuff. Right. So but Raven was the one that was really politicking for Punk, like when he came in. And I just don't really remember a lot about that because they put Punk in a gimmick, and he was at the church. He ended up doing some stuff, but it wasn't like I remember a lot about that.
Right.
He was in.
So that thing that them doing a job match there is no big deal. If you look, there was a lot of guys that did. Me and Mike Sanders beat Davari and Mr. Kennedy on one of those shows. I didn't even know about that. But these were brothers, 2003. These are all.
I know, bro. Right, me neither. Yeah. Like Luke Hawk was like, I was there, and I was like, I don't even fucking remember him. He
was like Altar Boy Luke.
Altar Boy Luke.
Yeah, Altar Boy Luke. Remember the skinny little kid?
Yeah, but he wasn't. You don't.
Right, exactly.
Underneath.
These were the indie guys. That and this is the thing. Burt Prentice used to book a lot of these guys.
Oh yeah,
because they were all kind of around the Tennessee. Because there was still a lot of indies in Tennessee and stuff around there. So they would get that indie Tennessee scene and get those guys in there because they could drive. And
plus the other thing is that I remember we had Heat for a long time, and then Jackie fixed it, and he was mad because he says that one time he offered me a ride, and I said no or was rude. And I was like, who knows?
I could see that.
If you're giving me a free ride to the show, I'm taking it. So something that must have been, who knows what happened. So, because usually you had to go like in this fucking van that they brought to the hotel. But anyways,
right.
So, okay, then it says worst match was Kid Cash versus Trinity, and really that was possibly the worst match of the year, and I don't know how many horrible women's matches they are going to have before they get a clue, and I would agree with that because the women were not good.
No, let me tell you something. The women there were good, and let me tell you why they were. I think
they were good.
No, because they weren't very. Let me tell you something. They maybe weren't good like for a Dave Meltzer, but if you watch a lot of the shit,
they were good for me, bro.
No, but here's the thing: we didn't do a lot of like long matches with the girls. We would have to do like catfights and brawl. Right. And like the girls, they were they were kind of green, but they were very snug.
Kind of. They were all.
But here's my point. They were kind of.
And I remember Trinity, and I remember Trinity especially because this was the deal with her, and I like her. She used to do a moonsault, so everybody used to go, "Oh my God, she's a great wrestler." No, she can hit a moonsault, and that's what about it. And now you guys think that she can wrestle. You know what I'm saying? And it was the same problem with Sexy Star and Lucha Underground. They thought she was this tremendous wrestler. And anybody looks good if Pentagon's basing you. I mean, give me a fucking break. You know what I'm saying?
But here was the thing, though. This is what Meltzer fails to realize is back then. Bro, we would use the girls in like cat fight spots. Right. And they would get a pop.
It would.
Like, it wasn't good. They would get a pop. And this is that, you know what I'm saying? And let me tell you that. I remember the Trinity Kid Cash match. That was a very disturbing match to watch. If you go back and find it. Bro, Cash and her were dating. And Cash was lighting her up. Like on chops and stuff.
Yeah, I do remember
and
that.
It was just like very uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah.
Like a guy, and it was like, and maybe that's why I looked at it and said that might have been one of the worst matches because this is before girls workers were getting, there was a handful of them.
Yeah. And he had that old school mentality, if you're going to be in the business. Yeah.
Oh, right. Exactly. So I could see him not liking that, but I recall that it was, I remember that. Like if you could find that on YouTube, if it's there somewhere, I would suggest you tell me what you think.
They have that the Impact app.
Okay, then it's okay. Then it said that made 4 straight bad shows, and as Raven has continually emphasized, the only way to make this weekly pay-per-view concept work is to have good shows almost every week. The live crowd was way down, estimated at 850, and the lines before the show were counted as roughly 1/3 of that paid. There's a lot of finger pointing at the attendance drop. Okay? Now here we go to Raven and Jarrett. A lot of talk regarding Raven and Jarrett. The big story after the show almost every week is Raven and Russo on one side and Jarrett on the other, trying to convince Dixie Carter, the daughter of the owner, that their ideas are better, and trying to rally as many people behind their respective sides and talking with her. How much of this is true?
Partially true. Raven was the one doing that.
Okay.
Vince was always all strictly business. Raven was very egocentric and trying to get he was trying to take over the company. Remember that?
Right. Yep.
He wanted to be in charge. Like Vince was never that. Vince was the writer of the show. That's it. And he would have to filter. Jeff was still the head of creative, and Vince is the writer. But that's all that you still remember those shows. Vince was just off producing vignettes all day, and stuff and like writing the show. But Vince would not politic. Vince would kind of like the thing was Dixie always leaned on Vince, but she would be in the middle of Jeff. It was Jeff and Raven butting heads. And all the butting heads with us and Jeff were always just in creative. That was never like at the shows.
Yeah, the Raven Jeff was more personal.
More personal, and that was at the show.
Why do you think it was personal? What did they have heat from somewhere before, or he didn't like the way Raven came in and tried to take over, or what? Just
typical Top Guy stuff. Both guys wanted to be the head guy in charge.
All right,
Jeff won.
So what?
Jeff, I remember when they had the big title match. Jeff even won the match. And, you can see he remained in power for years, and Raven, kind of faded away. So Jeff won that whole power struggle. Right.
Then it says, I don't even remember this. And then it says...
Well, plus two, and that's when I was going to push. I remember that the sports entertainment streaming stuff was hot there for a bit. And then we did a couple things that just weren't, maybe the show before wasn't, like the build-up to me and Jeff, that it wasn't, like something happened. I forgot what it was, but... I remember it was like, oh, fuck, it's going to be flat.
Well, your name is in here, so it might remember you when I get to it. That's why I wanted to get your point of view. Yeah. Then it says, tell me how much of this is true. It says, Russo's side turns in a show on Thursday and complains that Jarrett doesn't come back with the changes until Tuesday, late at night, and Russo's too tired to argue with him.
You can ask Vince about that.
Good strategy.
I don't. Well, after the show, like we would do when between us at the getting together and writing the shows, I really wouldn't get back till like we were driving up to Nashville the next Wednesday. I didn't anything in between with Jeff and Vin. I was completely out of that process.
All right, I don't even remember this and my name is in it. So it says a major topic of discussion was that during the show, Konnan and Ron Killings attacked Ron and Don Harris in the back of the building with a loaded sock and a baseball bat. The Harris twins were back twice on the show, showing no signs of a beating and never vying revenge, nor was the beating ever acknowledged. Don West actually brought this up before the show at a production meeting, and Dredd said that the twins wouldn't be seen until 30 minutes after the beating. There is a feeling that because West came in less than a year ago with no product knowledge, that even though he's been a fast study, Jeff and more so Jerry don't take seriously his questions about the show. You remember any of this?
Not that specifically. Okay. Vince, I just remember those shows were very busy for 2 hours. Like there's a lot of angle, there was a lot going on. Yeah, a lot going on, right?
Yeah, the biggest controversy. Here we go. The biggest controversy involved Raven and Jarrett. Raven, see if you remember this. Raven suffered a head injury the night before working an indie match with D'Lo Brown in Oddcastle, Ontario.
I remember this, yes.
Okay. The injury must have been legit because several wrestlers noted the swelling he had on the left side of his head. He was complaining about it and said he had a minor Huh? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. He said he had a minor concussion and asked for his match to be delayed a week. Jarrett told him he had to suck it up, and since Jarrett had been around for so long, he probably at least considered the idea that Raven was trying to avoid doing the planned job for Glenn Gilberti. Even though the finish was the return of Vince Russo as a character hitting Raven with a bat. Gilberti really isn't over as a headliner, and Raven is the hottest guy in the company. But Jarrett was defending against Gilberti on 6'4", so Gilberti needed the boost. Right. But Raven... Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing. Let me tell you this, too. I remember this. I really didn't want to be in, like, the title picture.
Right.
My gimmick going up there was, like, kind of like the shit disturber picture. Right. And I think Jeff kind of, like, maybe wanted me, but I was getting – that's a lie. We were getting
a good reaction.
We were getting sports entertainment. We were putting good heat on us, right?
Yeah.
But I just remember there was the thing that, like, it was obvious that Raven and Jeff should have been the angle. You know what I'm saying? And I think Jeff was kind of, like, fighting against that because he knew Raven behind the scenes was trying to politic to be in charge of the company, you know what I'm saying? So Jeff kind of went with me, but here was the other thing too that nobody really knew about.
And one great thing about Raven that you got to give him credit for, Raven had no trepidation bearing Jarrett in public or in 100%. Person or in private.
There was a lot of heat between those two.
Right.
It was funny too because there was a lot of heat between those two. We all saw it, but everybody else was having a good time at those shows.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like they were fun shows, right? So, but I will say this: do you know who was actually politicking at one point for me to be the world champion?
No.
Jerry Jarrett. And I don't know. When I heard that, I was like, really? Because I knew that he really wasn't a fan, but he liked what I was doing on the thing. Like I said, I went from the leader of Sports Entertainment Extreme, and like within like a 6-week period, I was fighting Jeff for the belt. I wouldn't have. I actually think I was.
But you were over at that time.
I was over, but I still felt,
But they didn't push you as a top guy.
Well, they were pushing me like as in the top guy angles because we were everything.
Well, now
a lot of
this
stuff,
one,
yeah.
this one, yeah.
Well, there was a lot of stuff going on. I fucked AJ.
Yeah.
Then I had a little thing with AJ for like 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks actually, and that kind of built me up to fight Jeff. But that's all I did. My angle with AJ was actually better than the one with me and Jeff. But the whole thing was, in Sports Entertainment Extreme, our thing was we were telling the story that Jeff was in charge of the company. And the only reason that he's got the belt is because he owns the company.
Right.
And we were telling that because it was all a lot of behind, we were talking about all this.
Right.
And I just remember Raven, like I said, because when Raven and Jeff ended up wrestling each other, they drew a really good house.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was obvious those two were on a collision course. And here's another thing too that happened during all this. When I going into the match with Jeff, my back had started hurting like a week before. Like I'd always have recurring back problems, but it was like fuck, that I went in with Jeff and my back was not 100%. I think maybe a week or two after that match is when I blew my back out and got hurt and was out for a couple months. Like where I actually had the back spasms right after I think it was me and Shane against Jeff and Raven, maybe even like they had gotten, I don't know what, but whatever happened, I actually got my back went out. I blew my back out. And let me say this too. There's another funny thing because it was me, Raven, Russo, Sanders, and Perry would drive up in the car to the show, right? And those were actually some pretty good creative meetings there because there's a lot of ideas. Perry was very smart to the business too, and Sanders did some stuff. So they actually had a lot of good ideas. Of course, Raven was always trying to book his stuff, and everything. But I was kind of like more. Even though when they were pushing me, I was still more for the other angles, right? But the funny thing is, like, remember how Raven used to complain? Maybe you were here in the locker room when this happened. Remember when Raven complained all the time? He was just always complaining, right? Like the time we complained about, and he had a shoot broke because D'Lo would hit him in the side of the head with a kendo stick, and he for a shoot like he was fucked up. But
right.
This
it even says here that
yes, that was a shoot. No, okay. No. But I will say this. Do you remember the match that I blew my back out on? Okay. Raven actually had jumped over the top rope or something, and I tried to catch him, but my back was and he landed bad and hurt his ankle, his heel. And I actually after the match, I was actually laying on the mats outside the ring. I couldn't move. And they had to carry me to the back. When they carried me to the back, it took me to the back locker room in the corner, the one if you're walking out of, not that the sex locker room that was in the far corner, but we went back to the main locker room.
Always in,
I had a little area back there.
Yeah.
So, right. So do you remember this when we went back there? Raven was grabbing his ankle. He was like going, oh my God, my ankle. Oh, you fucked up. Like he was just complaining like as loud as can be. And here I was, literally couldn't move.
Right.
And I finally yelled, I go, Raven, will you shut the fuck up because I'm fucking hurt. I couldn't even move. And when I looked up to look in the mirror, I was all twisted like this because I had back spasms. And everybody's looking at me going, oh shit, you're fucked up. Then Raven actually shut up from complaining all the time because I remember he would just always constantly complain all the time back then.
And you just brought up a name, and it just brought up a story that I remembered. Perry Saturn. Listen to this. So one time we were in the dressing room, and back then I used to use the N-word a lot, right? Mm-hmm. But usually when brothers that I knew, Ron Killings and, New Jack and shit like that, or Puerto Rican guys, because they use that shit a lot. And so I said something like, man, these N-words are tripping or something like that, right? And I kept talking, and Perry Saturn decided to use the N-word. Bro, New Jack went off. He goes, I dare you to say that fucking word again. And he goes, what are you talking about? He goes, you know what I'm talking about. I double dare you, motherfucker, to say that motherfucking word again. Bro, And Perry very thankfully did not, because he was about to go off, bro. He was fucking incensed. But anyways, so here we go with the okay. But Raven was furious, and it was the talk after the show, and reportedly Raven was throwing up during much of the week due to the concussion. Jarrett told Raven he could do a 5-minute match, but he wanted a match and wanted to Gilberti over. Raven didn't want a short match because he didn't want to be in a stinker main event, so he, on his own volition, wound up there for 15:35. One spot where Raven would kick out of the Siacalypse was pulled from the match because Raven couldn't take the move. Raven had it won when Sandman started whacking him with a cane in the back. Jarrett saved Raven, since at the end of their much talked about promo, Jarrett said he was going to make sure Raven was 100% when they finally had their rematch. So he was Raven's protector for now. The crowd, which wasn't into much all night, got into the end of the match after a sluggish start. Raven told Gilberti to avoid anything to the head, and Gilberti, whose offense comes across like a prelim guy anyway, looked worse trying to be careful and worked extra light because every blow was hurting Raven bad. The current plan for the current plan for the anniversary show is Jarrett versus Gilberti versus Raven in a 3-way. Did that ever happen?
Maybe. I'm not sure. I can't remember that specifically.
No. Let me see. There was one more thing I wanted to bring up here. Jarrett and Raven had an in-ring worked confrontation, which was weird. The idea was not to turn either guy. Jarrett seemed to have 75% support when he was out by himself, but there was a vociferous heel cornered and Jarrett was insulting them. It was said this was Russo's call, and Jarrett wanted to just not acknowledge the boos. Raven came out and called Jarrett the game, which started a light Triple J chant. Raven talked about politics and backstabbing and compared Jarrett to Shane and Stephanie McMahon. Jarrett made a comeback saying that nobody wanted Raven to be champion and basically called him a drug addict. And I remember this because I talked to Jeff about it after it, saying he was shooting up backstage at one point. Fans were booing Jarrett by the end, particularly when calling Raven a drug addict. Do you remember this?
Yeah, because we were like a 3-month process.
I remember this
of turning Jeff heel, slow turn. Like we're basically everything, the pressure of being the owner is getting to him, and he's starting to heel instead of like he's turned into a bad guy. Because we would always do spots where like he would do, the old thing where you turn around and he would hit the baby face with the chair, but he says acting like he didn't know who it was. Type thing. We would do. There was a lot of storytelling like that.
Right. So you were turning him heel at this point, Jarrett, when he said he was a drug addict?
It had been started before that. He was still, bro.
So he was trying to get heel heat.
There's a promo that I cut. There's like a month before that we started laying the groundwork for him being a heel. And I remember one of the promos I cut. Like me and AJ have a brawl, and it starts off because we're recruiting D'Lo. We're trying to recruit D'Lo into sports entertainment. He comes in, and basically he'd been promised a title shot. Or he wanted to come in for a title shot. Like we were trying to get him to come in sports entertainment stream, but he ended up, it was a good pitch. But like, so there was I actually said, like in the promo I had said before AJ comes, because I just screwed AJ out of his shot the week before, right? So I'm in the ring telling D'Lo that we're going to be in his corner tonight and stuff. And I was by myself and like, well, but one of the things I said, I go, Jeff Jarrett is not a good guy. It's not a good guy. I go, the only reason Jeff Jarrett is a good guy is because he's wrestling in his hometown, and these people believe his bullshit. And we were doing that because he wasn't really doing wrestling like a good guy. He was doing a lot of heel, but like he was up against the heel faction, but he was still doing heelish stuff. And so that's how we were twisting that. And maybe that could have actually, I don't know, if it had affected that crowd. Because I don't know if they wanted Jeff to be a heel.
No, this is what I remember, because I remember this. I remember hearing this promo, and now that I'm thinking that I told this to Jeff, Jeff must have been thinking, how high is this motherfucker if he doesn't realize that I'm being a heel? Because I thought he was a babyface, and when he came back, I go, bro, that's not smart to say, because all those motherfuckers out there are taking drugs too. So when you say that he's taking drugs and he's a drug addict, they're like, yeah, so are we, motherfucker.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I don't understand what that was supposed to accomplish.
Yeah.
But I remember telling him that, but I didn't know they were turning him heel. I thought he was still a babyface.
You can check out another 30 minutes of this TNA 2003 conversation, as well as about a half hour on Monday Night Raw, Nitro, The Attitude Era, and more on the Patreon site at patreon.com/Konnan. and Konnan.me.